a good problem solver identifies a problem, and as soon as they can identify the root cause of the problem is 50% complete. So the whole effort and solution is only 50%. The real 50% is knowing that an A player should spend 70% of their time understanding the problem, 30% of their time attacking the problem. When we can do that, you're going to be effective. And I'm not just saying like, oh, teach people this. You're going to see people who will just stand there, they'll think about it, they'll look around, and then they'll say something. And it's like, oh, okay. And then they solve a problem really well. And it did not take near the amount of time, of effort, of energy, of focus that it did the other people who just jumped into the problem without understanding the problem. Goodness. I know we were talking before this. I wasn't expecting that.
You weren't expecting that, were you? That's the best kind of Happy New Year's when you're not expecting it. If you walk into a room and you expect to hear Happy New Year and then you hear it, it's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
But when a Happy New Year just comes out and goes right in your face,
Gotcha.
It's like, oh, man, I am excited for the new year, actually. Thank you for shocking me back into reality. Welcome to the Culture Base, already in progress, 2026 edition. We're so glad to be with you. I'm Dustin. He's Blake. We are the Culture Base. We're here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop a scalable team to get them there. And about a month ago, we left you off with kind of right in the middle of this series that we've been doing, the A Culture series, in which we're talking about A players. Now, we have a lot to get through today, but we do want to kind of bring you up to speed if you're just now joining this conversation of A players and stuff like that. So, Blake, I thought maybe we could do like teacher, student, sensei. I don't know what the other side of the sensei is.
Sensu?
Sensu, maybe?
No, I don't think
that's not right at all. But I love where we're going. I thought maybe we would just do like a let me recap how we got here. And then you can be like, no, grasshopper. That's it. Young grasshopper. All right. So A player was originally introduced by Jack Welch. This is not something new that we have like phrase that we've entered into, but where Jack took it is he said, look, you got A players, you got B players, C players, fire all your C players, right? And grow up your B players. So am I right so far?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Cool. Great. Cool. Not, by the way, not Welch's grape juice. It's different Welch.
Also true. Yes,
yeah,
that's a
true
sure.
I mean, you got to give me some nod. You got to give me some affirmation here.
Yeah. Sorry. Not grape juice. Think more GM.
It's GE.
GM.
I thought it was GE.
I think that's Edison.
What? I know Edison, yeah, but I'm not saying Jack Welch.
I know you know who Edison is.
I know that you know your history. All right, I'm going to move on while you look up.
Oh, hey, by the way, you're right. It's G.
Yeah. You know how I know that? 30 Rock.
That's how you do it right there.
30 Rock, because Alec Baldwin's character was like he worshipped Jack Welch.
Oh,
and Jack Welch ran GE.
Right. Man.
So, anyway, since we're on a roll of
very good way to work through that.
I don't need affirmation here. I just need nods. I just need the nods. There, right? I don't need like build up affirmation. I just need like, hey, we're going in the right spot. All right, these people are tuning out. Let's get it back in. So Jack Welch introduced A player. Jack Welch he was really strict, and he would promote, keep all that stuff. A players, he would develop B players, C players, get them out of here. We bring a little bit more of a 2026 approach to this, and we're going to build up the C players a bit. Just, nodding. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. All right. So what we've said is there are 10 attributes that we can identify in an A player. And an A player is someone that you want on your team, right? Everybody knows different. Everybody knows an A player when you see it. You can feel it when you walk in the room. You can feel it in meetings. If you're kind of in tune to it more, you can feel it in interviews. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to is like, how do we identify A players in interviews? Like when we're trying to hire. And then also, how do we identify A players that are already within our organization? How do we identify the B and C players so that we can grow and develop them up into A players, right? Because we all want, as business owners and leaders, we all want teams of A players. And so we've identified 10 attributes that no matter what the industry you're in, these 10 attributes have to be present in your A players. Now, there are different ranking variations of it. I'll let Blake get into that. And then there are categories of it as well. But let me just give you the 10 attributes real quick. And we've talked about half of these already. And over the next 5 episodes, we're going to continue the other half. So the first 5 that we've covered already are accountability for actions, reliability, quality of work. Now, I'll pause there. Those 3 are part of the competency category. Accountability for actions, reliability, quality of work. Then we got into the drive or the agency category, right? And in that category, we talked about taking initiative. And then last time we talked about continuous improvement. Today, we're going to get into problem solving ability. And then in the next 4 episodes after this, it's going to be adaptability and flexibility, which will round out the agility category. Then it's going to be teamwork, communication. Those 2 are going to be in the collaboration category. And then one that stands alone by itself, it's its own category and attribute, is leadership. So today we're doing problem solving ability. Then we'll go adaptability and flexibility is the next episode. Then teamwork, then communication, then leadership. Anything else you want to say, Blake, to kind of set the scene for where we're at?
Yeah. And it'll take us right into this. And
Perfect.
by the way,
that a segue. Oh,
beautiful. That was beautiful. Yeah. So like Dustin was saying, we're in agility. And I'm going to stick with the sensei mentality here, because when you think of agility and you think of a ninja, right? Like we all watched 3 Ninjas when we were kids, I'm sure. Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum. Yeah, that's still stuck in the subconscious. But agility is that ability to be effective, quick. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's just like you don't even see it. It happens because of the skill, the mastery they have put into certain characteristics. And so today we're talking about problem solving. Next week, it'll be adaptability. Those are agility aspects. That's what all of a sudden gives you that ability to just be able to be working on one thing, doing one thing, and then all of a sudden be effective in another because you thought through it well. So not that those other things don't matter. This is where you get that speed and you get that finesse, if you will. Yeah. Anything you'd add on that?
No, I love it. Keep going.
Cool. So C players and B players solve problems. They do. They solve them, and they may put just as much work into solving problems too, by the way. Effective A player problem solvers know that the first place is not in solving problems, it's in identifying problems. Okay, so an A player is going to say they're going to sift through a lot of stuff. They're going to say, what's the problem we're actually solving? I.e., is this root cause or is this symptomatic? Right? Like someone comes in from a car crash and you look at the person and they got a cut on their arm, but they're also got a massive gash in their torso. It's being able to say, okay, I think there's a deeper issue here that we need to solve here. And maybe we should focus on this one, i.e., what's the acute issue? What is the thing we should look at first? And then solve some of those other things. So they're about project or problem identification. And Peter Drucker, he talks about this idea that like a really good team is able, or a good problem solver identifies a problem, and as soon as they can identify the root cause of the problem is 50% complete. So the whole effort and solution is only 50%. The real 50% is knowing that an A player should spend 70% of their time understanding the problem, 30% of their time attacking the problem. When we can do that, you're going to be effective. And I'm not just saying like, oh, teach people this. You're going to see people who will just stand there. They'll think about it. They'll look around and then they'll say something. And it's like, oh, okay. And then they solve a problem really well. And it did not take near the amount of time, of effort, of energy, of focus that it did the other people who just jumped into the problem without understanding the problem. Okay. So A players, I think that's where we've got to start, is you've got to start with root cause analysis of the problem. And you don't have to be scientific and nerdy about it. Like, it is more just about understanding what are the things I need to know. Then you have some solution generation, and then there's implementation, and then there's verification and learning. Like, those are kind of your high level categories of the anatomy of a problem solving technique. You've got to have, and verification and learning doesn't always happen, but with A players, it does. Okay. So I would say if you don't see those semi stages in the problem solving, they're probably just regurgitating something they heard or saw, which doesn't mean they innately got it. Go ahead.
Give us those stages one more time, just succinctly in order.
Yep. So it's problem recognition, a root cause analysis. I guess there may be 5 here. Solution generation, some ideation. Then there's implementation. It's actually making the thing happen. And then there's verification and learning. So I guess there's 5.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
The thing that's crazy about this, and there are some people who were born with this ability. Okay. But I also believe this can be a learned mentality at the same time. But the thing that's interesting is we just talked about 5 stages. You are not necessarily cognitively going to think of all 5 stages as you go through it, but somebody can do this in a nanosecond. Boom, 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 boom. They just see it. They understand it. The verification and learning may take a little bit after implementation, but a lot of like the 1, 2, 3, the agility comes from practicing that over and over. And okay, is that the real thing? Okay, it is the real thing. Now what should we do? This, or this? Well, this one looks like it'll be the most effective. Go. Yeah. And the more you do that, the more natural, I guess, it becomes, and the more your brain starts looking for those patterns.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about these agility attributes, right? And I love what Blake said there about these are the attributes that, even if they may have a little innate ability to problem solve, they only get better, and they really only get to A player status by exercising that muscle constantly. And we're going to talk about in a minute, Blake, about how to make sure that we're sustaining the environment to tackle those problems. But first, can you kind of walk us through a little bit of, as you've been growing your team in the organizations that we work with, culture-based things like that? How can the leaders listening to this and watching this begin to identify those skills in their A player, and then help a B player kind of progress towards A player status?
Yeah. So first off, I think you said something that's just ultimately key here, is that for leaders, you need to be very attentive to your team in such a way that you can understand these kind of things.
Yep.
And sure, we can get data and we can do those types of things, but the people that are directly reporting to you, understanding those people, and understanding their abilities should be a high priority of yours. When you can say, okay, what kind of problem solving are they? Maybe like, hey, they either learned this way as they grew up, or they were born with this type of mentality. Like, how do they do it? Are they a trial and error, or do they need real hard, fast rules about how they get somewhere? And we do a thing called the Burke assessment a lot of times with our clients and stuff, which is being able to understand their problem solving technique more or less. It's almost like a personality or a style in which they will default to. So do they really like rules and they want systematic approaches set up? Or are they more of a trial and error to get somewhere? And both of those can be a very structured approach, but it's understanding what is the personality that they're, I guess, putting off here. But it is like what you're trying to identify here is an A player, which means they should have these skills at a certain level. Nobody's an A player who doesn't have these skills. Okay. there are people who can grow these skills into A playership. I'm just saying, if you're trying to say, is this person an A player and they can't problem solve? I would struggle to say yes, I would. Okay. And you could probably prove me wrong, but maybe there are certain jobs or roles that you don't want problem solving. And I get that. And we can talk about that here later, but I think you do need a certain aspect of that. The frameworks that we put in about these, like how to help a B player become an A player, I think there are frameworks. I mean, for me, one area that we've introduced before is this 3-step problem solving or creative problem solving approach, because we would essentially, when you're available to your team, one of the things you'll see is that people will come and ask you questions for answers they should be able to get or understand or already know. And I'm sure all leaders are probably nodding their head emphatically, like, yeah, why the hell are they asking me this? Exactly. But there's probably an aspect that you have enabled that at a certain level, that you have always been the one to answer, always been the one to say, do this, always been the one to give that final say, to where people are perhaps a little hesitant to go further in this. And so this is where I think you've got to get to a point where you first understand that. And then second, the structure I would add or framework is, first, encourage them to learn how to ask all the potential questions they can possibly ask. Like, think through everything. Here's the problem, like we were talking earlier. Think through all the issues in it. Second, if you were the most creative person, how would you solve this? Okay, all of a sudden that puts them in a mindset that's different. Now they're thinking creatively about the approach. So now they thought through all the things, the issues, the problems. If they were the most creative, how would they solve it? And then the thing you do, instead of calling you and asking all those things of what should I do? What should I do? Call, if you're still a little nervous about taking a step, call and say, here's what I plan to do. How would you adjust? That's it. Like, now you're bringing a solution to a person instead of a problem to a person. That's what an A player does. They've already thought through all these things. They've already looked at all the variables. They've come up with the creative solution. And then they say, here you go. This is what I think we should do. And they're probably humble enough, if they're an A player, if you say, I don't think that'll work, here's why.
Yeah.
It's now conversation about a solution, not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk all the time on this podcast, Blake, too, moving forward, about the kind of setting the right environment or cultivating the safe place for any of these attributes to be able to kind of thrive and grow, right? And to cultivate them in B and C players. But when we're talking about the environment, sustaining an environment to tackle problems, there are certain kind of like boundaries and guardrails here, and we can kind of get into like some of the regulations here. How have you seen that with some of our clients and businesses that we work with?
Yeah, it's a lot of times, especially leaders will say, oh, this is a place to try things. This is a place to be creative. This is a place to problem solve. But you will quickly squash that if every time someone tries to do that thing, you step in and you're like, oh, that'll cost this, that'll do this, that'll happen. Problem solving does cost something. Okay. It's an investment into somebody to have a return on something later on that it'll be amazing. Right. So part of the boundaries, if you're like, hey, this is a brand new person, some of the boundaries might be, hey, there's a lot of equipment in here that is just not safe. There needs to be a boundary of safety at all levels. So physical safety, got to have safety no matter where you go. Maybe it's another one that's like, hey, if you're working on this piece of equipment, I want you to be creative. But I want you to also know, if you're about to make a $10,000 mistake, that's too high for right now. We need to make $100 mistakes or $10 mistakes in the beginning, not $1,000 mistakes. But you have to frame where those guardrails are. Otherwise, everyone will be so fearful, they'll bring those guardrails way tighter and not go outside of almost common sense. I mean, do you ever go, man, some days this person kills it, and other days they're just, it's like common sense went out the door. Well, some days they probably feel opportunistic, and other days they're terrified as hell because they're afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, and the reason is that you feel that kind of like some days they're on killing it, some days they're on fire, and some days they're like super frustrating. And when it comes to this problem solving, is because I think leaders often forget to educate the things that you're talking about. So if we're saying like, hey, you can make $10 mistakes and $100 mistakes, not $1,000 mistakes. Okay, well, you have to educate me to know the cause and effect here, right? I can't just like you have to let me know, like, can I enter into this $10 door or $100 door?
Yep.
Like I have to be able to identify that door to be able to walk through it. And most people that are kind of in the field of whatever you're leading, could be manufacturing, it could be IT, whatever it is. If they're in the field, most people don't have the same kind of overview, foresight, history that you have, the knowledge that you have as a leader. And so I think leaders often forget. I know me as a parent, like I was just talking to my wife the other day, it's this constant theme as I'm raising my kids of, I wish they understood X. I just wish they understood X. And I have to constantly remind myself, they don't understand that. So I have to help them understand that. Right. Whether it's me straight telling them or me exposing them, depends on the cost. Depends on the cost analysis, right? Is this going to cost them a lot of pain and suffering down the road? Then I'm going to just straight up show them. I'm not going to let them understand and give them the playground to figure it out themselves. That's a thousands of dollars mistake, right? If we're talking dollars here, but I am going to give, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
But I am going to give them, room if it's a safer sandbox to play in, to figure it out, right? I might not let them touch the stove, right, but I may let them pet the barking dog, right? You know what I mean? Like it. So but what I'm saying here is there's education by exposure, but sometimes it's just straight up communication. I think leaders often forget what the people that they're leading don't know. And because leaders get so in their head, they've lived with these thoughts, they've lived with this knowledge for so long that they get frustrated with their team. Like, well, how come you just don't know that? Like it's the hardest thing for leaders is like, how do I teach intuition? Right. And we're talking about problem solving ability. Like we wish we could teach them intuition, but teaching intuition comes with prolonged exposure. Right. And so, but it's intentional prolonged exposure. How can you intentionally expose? When I'm thinking about books that I'm going to take my son or daughter through, it's intentional exposure because I want them I'm trying to lead them down a path of a certain type of intuition in life. And it's no different here with your team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think as you were talking through all that, something that kind of came to my mind is that, small mistakes, generally speaking, are going to be the person who makes the mistakes. But if a $10,000 mistake is happening, it's likely a mistake of the leader who didn't communicate or teach.
Yep.
And so that's not really on them, which why we're saying all this and why you're probably like, I thought this was about identifying A players. This is also about not squishing A players because A players won't stay in a place if they don't feel they can stay in a place, which I think probably leads us into some of why those environments are so important that the leader needs to create that, because you're going to squish an A player before you know they're an A player.
Right.
The one area I would speak to, because I kind of talked a little earlier about regulations, there is a point where creative problem solving has a very high risk, and anytime life safety is there, I know I say it all the time, but I'm a broken freaking record. I think that you've got to work within like creativity. If somebody's cutting me open, I don't want them to get the creative. Ooh, I got a little. To be clear here, it's not just somebody. We're talking doctors here. We don't just have random people coming up cutting you open. Yeah, no, not usually. So I think that's where it's one of those things that I do think that there is a time and a place for it. And part of an A player is knowing that time and the place.
Yeah, agreed.
And one of the things I'd speak to as well is B players can look a lot like A players when ego is involved. Okay. And this is where, and I was reading some Ryan Holiday a couple days ago, the Ego is the Enemy, I think it's called. And he said something I thought was really like illuminating. And that was, who you like, there's almost this filter of trying to understand why people do things. If me or somebody, are they doing it because they want to be known for who they are or what they can do? And those two things are very different. We act very differently when that is a motivation. And so why creativity? Is it truly about solving the problem? A player, the do. Or is it about me being known as the person who solved the problem? Ego, me. Like the thing, and I said this to my wife this morning because I've been chewing on this a lot. I said, gosh, who was the guy who invented penicillin? And she's like, gosh, I can't remember his name. And I was like, exactly. So like, what are we trying to go after to get some notoriety or some like, oh, I want to be remembered forever. I'm not gonna like, I want to do great things in this world, but penicillin, like that was crazy. Like that guy saved some lives. I don't know his name. That's unfortunate. I need to do better there. But the real point, it's fleeting. It will not last. But the fact that penicillin was created and saved lives, big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we wrap this conversation, Blake, we need to kind of mention here about having these problem solving playbooks and protocols. Yes, that's kind of more of the process, but what we're looking to identify here in A players and where we need to grow them up to is really this, what you've called many times in conversation before, the art of post-mortem. And this is where like, hey, repeat problems of the same kind should be identified as opportunities, right? It's not. And so what we want to see in our A players is that when the problem is solved and we're ready to move on, that they learn from it enough to be able to teach others. Right. So we want to be able to say like, because if they're just like, for me, I know I'm a process person. So I'm like, process is done, process worked, on to the next. But you have to kind of slow down and go, well, wait, what did we learn from this? And that's the attribute of and problem solving and agility that we're looking for in our A players that we're trying to grow up is, can we pause just a moment long enough to learn from it, look around the room, regurgitate what we learned, document it if it needs to be documented, add it into the playbook if it needs to be added into the playbook, and then move on. Yeah.
Yeah. One of our big problems is that we don't treat problem solving like part of the role. We treat problem solving as something we do that's a hindrance to the role.
Yeah. Like it's a troubleshooting guide at the back of the book.
Exactly. And all you do is you pull these 3 levers. Well, what if one of those levers doesn't work? Well, I don't know. That's not part of my role. That's not true. And we don't do a good enough job of identifying that the problem solving is what really makes you great at the role. Yeah. We need to do a better job of communicating that.
Yeah. And you'll hear it too. We've heard it in some of our coaching sessions with different team members of clients as well. Someone starts to use the phrase and throw the phrase around of "that's not my problem."
Yep.
That's not an A player. For multitude of reasons, but specifically they're using the P word here, which we're talking about today, which is problems and problem solving. And if they can't own that, if they can't own this as this is a problem for all of us, and I would like to help be part of the solution here, like then that's not an A player. And so as you're growing and developing your team, just be listening out for that for sure. So any other final thoughts, Blake, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just that problems are not problems. They're opportunities for growth. They're indicators that something needs to change or get better. They're indicators that you need to scale to another level. They're indicators that training needs to happen. Those are all opportunities. They're not problems. If you see problems as a negative, then you're not seeing problems like an A player sees it.
Boom. That's it right there. Next week, next episode, we're going to be back with the other part of agility, which is adaptability and flexibility. Cannot wait to talk to you about that then. We're so excited to continue this A culture series talking about A players. We're going to keep on trucking all the way through all 10 attributes. Next week or next time, we'll be back with you on that adaptability and flexibility. Talk to you then on the Culture Base podcast. Have a great week.